Welcome back to the Blender 3 Docwalk. Today we are going over 3 documents because they are all quite short and I'm pretty sure I can fit them all into 10-15 minutes. So we're going to first do a color picker. They're going to jump over to color ramp widget, the color palette, and the curve widget. So yeah, let's get started with the color picker. Okay, so you'll notice I have my materials tab open down here. If I hop over here, any of these color boxes, all you have to do is click on it and it will bring up the color picker. So let's do that. Now you'll notice that I've got the circle color picker selected. If you want to change to any of the other color picker types, the others are square and they are either HSV, HVS, or SVH. Either way, it's hue, saturation, and value. So let me show you how that works. If you want to change that, you come over to your preferences, open that up, and right here under the very first interface tab, you'll see color picker type. You'll see that the default Blender setting is the circle HSV, hue, saturation, value. Click on that and you'll get your selection types or your possible types. Circle HSL, this is hue, saturation, lightness. Square SV plus H, square HS plus V, and square HV plus S. These are all like SV plus H is saturation, value plus hue. HS plus V is hue, saturation plus value. HVS is hue, value plus saturation. So what that plus means is, here, let me go ahead and select this first one. And if I'll come over here and open this up, you'll see that I have a square here. What this means is that hue and saturation are my two axes within the square. So you'll notice we're in hex mode. That means that it's displaying my hexadecimal value, the hex value of whatever color has been selected. HSV is hue, saturation, value. So this is where we've got the two axes, hue and saturation. You'll see if I run it across the top, you'll see that the S slider is the only one that's really changing. If I go vertical, the V slider is the one that's changing. So hex values are 6-digit values. Now this is hexadecimal notation. It's not binary or octal or decimal. It's hexadecimal, which means that there are 16 separate values. So instead of, as in decimal, you go from 0 to 9. With hexadecimal, you go from 0 to F. Once you count up and hit 9, from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, then you begin with your alphabetical characters, which is A, B, C, D, E, and then F, and then it starts over again from 0, right? So any any hex representation of a color, it's 6 characters typically. In this, well, that's not always true. Sometimes it's 8, but the reason being, let me explain really quickly. You'll see your hex value here. Your first two, this is typical RGB format, so red, green, blue. So your first two are red. So if I do FF, hit enter, that is the reddest red that I can produce. If I get rid of that, and let's put the two F's in the very middle, that is as green as I can get. And then lastly, if I drop the two offs, or move the two F's to the end, that is going to be as blue as I can get. Now, sometimes you'll see 2 extra digits at the end. Those are your opacity, right? Your alpha value. So in this instance, Blender doesn't use it like that. I don't think anywhere, but I'm pretty sure here at least Blender doesn't. But if at any time you see something with 8 digits instead of 6 and it's supposed to be a hex value, that's why. Because your last 2 digits are your opacity or your alpha value. But as here, our alpha is controlled by this bottom slider here. So if I want to change my alpha value, you'll see the rightmost square in my color button there, going from fully opaque to totally transparent. So that's where you change the alpha value here. Now I'm going to change back to my circle. Yeah, so just so you know, there's two other types of squares. I think most people like the circle color picker, but it's totally up to you. And there are reasons for using different ones at different times, but for the most part, I think most people are pretty comfortable with dealing with the circle color picker. Okay, so we went over hex. This is hue saturation value. Again, you have your alpha at the bottom, so you can change your hue, saturation of that hue, and the value of that hue. And also the transparency, right? RGB works a little differently. It's got your red, green, and blue values plus your alpha value. So if you just want straight red, turn that all the way up, turn these guys all the way down, turn your alpha all the way up, and you've got red, 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 red. If I run over to hex, you'll see that my two front Fs, or my two front digits, are going to be Fs. See? Okay. Now, if you use your color wheel, if you use your mouse wheel while you're inside of the color wheel, it is going to change. Well, with this one, it's changing my red value, but if that's because it was turned all the way up. Come on, back up, guy. If I bring the other guys up a little bit, you'll notice that it will change all of them. And in proportion to their the ratio between them, okay. HSV here, it is only altering the value, and so you'll see the slider at the side also changing as I'm scrolling my mouse wheel up and down. You can also use your control button for incremental snapping through your primary colors. So if I'm in my wheel mode here and I start moving around and hold my control button down, you'll see all of a sudden I'm snapping from the main colors all the way around: red, orange, yellow, light green, green, teal, I guess. But yeah, so it's snapping through some of the major colors, not primary colors, your RGB or your primary colors here, but you get the idea, right? It also works in your sliders down here, but again, we ran into something like this before. If you hold control down first and then click, it's just going to register it as a normal click. Now, if I just do one normal click on any of these slider fields, you should already know this. It's just going to bring up my text entry mode for that slider. Okay. Same thing happens if I try to hold control down. See, hold control down, clicking the field, it's going to enter text edit mode. We don't want that. We want the incremental snapping, right? So what I want to do is I want to start sliding first and then hold control down. And now you'll see that it's snapping incrementally here. Okay, you can also do not discrete stepping. That was discrete stepping. You can also do precision stepping by holding shift down. See, it takes much longer for me to move around. It also works in the circle itself. So if I'm moving around, now I'm going to hold shift down. And it's barely moving around. It's very, very refined, right? So that is your precision modifier there, your shift button. That was Color Picker. And now let's quickly jump on over to the Color Ramp widget. All right, so for the closest color ramp I can think of, we're going to head over to Preferences and down from Interface to Editing. Now, I'm going to close all these up. Remember, if I just right click and drag down, it's going to close everything. So right click, drag. And I'm going to go to weight paint. Okay, now this is a color ramp, obviously, right? So if you've never seen one of these before, it is a pretty simple little device. Many graphic design programs utilize a color ramp, so we'll just go through it really quickly. These little sliders here, these are your control points. You can select them by clicking on it or near it. So I can, as long as I'm somewhat close to it, it will select it. You can move them around to compress or extend the gradient displayed. I can add new control points by clicking the plus sign. It will add a new one in the middle of your two control points with a bias towards your selected control point. So, for example, I'm going to add one. It's going to go right in the middle here. If I add another, say I select this guy and add a second one, it's going to pop it in the middle of those two. If I select this fellow over here and add another one, it's going to drop one down in the middle of those two. See, so whichever, it looks like it's got a bias to the left also. So leftmost and whichever control point you have selected. So select the control point to the leftmost. See, like so. Okay, now you can just fill it up with control points. If you want to even them out, you go to your special menu, distribute stops from left. You can do that. It will, again, leftmost distribution, or you can distribute them evenly, like so. If you want to remove a control point, whichever one is selected, you just hit the remove or minus button, and it will remove the ones that you don't want. So let's do that. I'll distribute them. Okay, now I'm going to get some color going here. This is your color button right here. If you select that, it'll bring up your color wheel. Let's get a good green going and something quite opposite. Let's do that right there. That's good. I think that'll show us a few things I want to point out here. Okay, now your RGB or your color mode drop down, right? Same as with the color wheel and the square color selection color pickers. You've got hue, saturation value, hue, saturation, lightness, and red, green, blue RGB. Okay. Now, in the documentation, it states that that HSV and HSL have a greater color range or dynamic in selecting different gradient values. I'll show you what they kind of mean by that, but I really think it's totally up to you. But let's stay on RGB just for a second, and let's go through your interpolation methods here. So ease, well, linear is linear. That means it is a linear function from one color to the other. If you were to graph it, it would be a direct linear graph. So it's a very linear, stable, steady transition from one color to the other. Let's add a couple more guys really quickly. Distribute them. Let's mix this up just a bit so you can really see what's going on. Let's do a green, blue, there we go. Okay, now I'm not completely sure on how Blender uses the cardinal interpolation, what exactly they do, how they do this, but what I do know is that cardinal interpolation is a third degree polynomial spline. So and from what I understand, it's more defined based on the derivatives of the beginning and ending value. So, for instance, right, this red line here, it says h00, meaning the first derivative is 0, the ending derivative is 0, and you can see here that indeed the derivative at 0 here is going to be 0 because it's the top of the hump, so it's going to be flat, and here at 1 it's going to be flat as well. h10, the green, it starts off 1, meaning, well, yeah, see, I'm not 100% on what this is trying to do here, but basically I think it's just, you know, this sort of third degree polynomial like shape, right? This kind of like S, almost like a half of a sine wave kind of a look. So, and if you look at how the colors here are kind of laid out, how it's kind of heavy at the beginning, and then you have like this sort of quick transition, and then it gets just kind of heavy into that color again. I think that's what's going on here, but you know, I don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. That's that is my best guess. You've got linear. We already did linear, didn't we? Where it's just straight linear transition. Easing is very similar to what we just kind of talked about. It's just an ease in and an ease out. B-spline has this more sort of smeared out look, right? So here, I'll show you well, let's get rid of a couple of these in the middle really quick. Oops. And you'll see just how smeared out this is. And we are going to play with the alpha, with the see how you can see checkerboards all the way over to the green, and we're changing the alpha of the of this guy over here. So with this control point's alpha being 0, you can see that it's carrying all the way over to the other point. So that's B-spline. And then constant is just like abrupt changes. So if I drop a couple of other guys in here, go, oops, let's get some alpha back over here. There we go. So you'll notice it's just is that what is that color? Magenta, hot magenta, all the way until I hit my next control point, and then I'm gonna have to turn the alpha up on everybody, and then blue, and then green. So it's just very abrupt changes. So that's all under RGB. You're not going to find that find these options with either of these two. So let's move to one of these guys. Now the interpolation options over here are actually pretty cool. I'll show you how these work. So let me get rid of. You know what? Yeah, I'm going to leave one in the middle. You can already see how interesting this gets, right? With all these new colors that, aren't exactly what you would think of when you're thinking of blending this magenta color with green. So how this works near, okay, if we pull up the color wheel, you'll notice this is my leftmost control point, right? This hot pink. And then green is, somewhere over here. Both of these are somewhere over here. So near, when it says near, it means it's going to go the fastest way around, the nearest way around the control wheel, or around the color wheel. So if I'm trying to get here to here, well, it's the nearest between these 2 points. It's going to be a little off, is this way through these colors. That's why you see the red, orange, and yellow in there, because that's the closest, fastest way over to the other color point. Let's change a few of these up really quick so we can really see some of these other options. let's do that. Okay, so that's near. It's going to take the closest route going around, right, to the next control point color. Far does just the opposite. It's going to take the farthest, longest way around to the next control point color. So you can see it alters it quite a bit. And then you have clockwise and counterclockwise. Similar concept, except it's directional instead of which one's the closest. So what may be nearest with one setup is going to be clockwise. Let's see. Let me see if I can say this right. Okay. Whatever's nearest in one setup is going to either be clockwise or counterclockwise, depending on how the setup is. So, but one of them is going to be the same. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So whatever the direction that near chooses, you know what? I'm going to get rid of this middle one so we can really explain this, and let's pick some good ones here. So I'm going to get. Let's do this one, and then we're going to pick one. Okay, let's do this. Okay. So, obviously, near is going to go from green straight to orange. That's the closest way around. Okay. Now, farthest is going to go the other way around, all the way around this way. Okay. So, we're going to go from green all the way around, catch all these colors, and then light on orange. Now, if we do clockwise, it's exactly the same as furthest, right? If we go far, it's exactly the same as clockwise because they happen to be the same direction. If we go counterclockwise, now that's going to be the same as near because they happen to be the same direction. They don't mean the same thing. They just will always end up aligning with one or the other of the other options. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Okay, this position control here, it's exactly what you think. Whichever control point is your active control point, right? The active color stop, that's the control point this position slider is going to control. You can also just drag that and the position slider will follow like that. If you want to drop a control point without hitting plus and then having to kind of decide where you want to put it. If you say you want to put one here, you can hold down control and then left mouse click. And aside from, I think the only thing we have left to talk about is we did the distribute stops from left. We did the evenly distribute, flip color ramp. We'll just flip it, horizontal flip, eyedropper, reset the color ramp to its original default like that. And then, of course, if you just hit E while you're hovered over the color ramp, your color picker is going to come up and you can go ahead and just, oh, weird. I thought it would. Oh, it must be within the window. And then you can just pick whatever color you want, like this beautiful select blue. Okay, so that's it for color ramp widget. Let's go ahead and jump on over to the color palette. So, color palette, okay, just really stretched out here. I just wanted to pull it to the center of the screen so we can just, see everything nice and clearly. Okay, you should already have a default color palette. If you go over to your data block menu selector here, click on it, and there's going to be something that just is called palette, right? It's going to have an F next to it because it's assigned to a fake user right now because nothing's using it. But go ahead and select it, and you'll have this whole palette show up. Now, traditionally, it's with a more narrow screen. You're usually going to work with it looking like that. But just so we have let's leave it there. That's fine. So, super basic operation. Plus adds new selection to your color palette. This is just a palette, like an artist's palette, like something that you use to just store the colors that you are going to be working with throughout your project. So, these are the colors you've mixed and prepared for your art piece, right? That's what this is. It's literally your color palette. So you can add a bunch of colors if you would like. If you want to alter the color within any one palette section, if you hold Control down and click, it should bring up your color picker. Okay, so I can change whatever I want there. Click, get a blue there, Control click, and let's get a just black. Okay, so that's that operation, right? Obviously, then you can delete them if you don't want them around. And then just simply selecting one, just clicking it, whatever color you want to use with your brush. So it's just the color you select. So that's not too difficult. If I want to start painting in yellow, I select that, or you know, beige, skinish color, or blue, or whatever. The selected color is the selected color. That's what you're going to be painting with. You can also order your colors. So say I've got this red and I want to bring it to the top. I can do this and it will move it around for me. I wonder if I can, you can click and drag as well. I guess that copies it. That just copies it. So if I wanted to move that down a little, it's just going to copy it over. But, you know, I can also, without overwriting another color, just use the down arrow and that will move that around. Then you have your sorting methods. You can actually sort by hue, saturation, value, or luminance. There's hue for you, saturation, color value, and luminance. All right, moving on to the curve widget. I would like to make a quick little point because 3.0 and 3.1 are still in beta. Down here in our controls for handle controls, handle options, we'll go over these in a second, but with these new versions, they have added the free handle and the aligned free handle. If you have worked with Bezier curves before, you know what this is. This is a new addition to the curve widget, but they have not yet implemented it. So there isn't, even in the new release, I just downloaded the last release the other day. I try to do it every other day. When it does happen, I will update this video. But yes, so these free handle and aligned handle are not currently. In fact, let me show you really quick. I'm going to just duplicate this, and we will look at the 2.83 LTS, and you will see that here we've got vector handle, auto handle, and auto clamped handle. Whereas here we have vector handle, auto clamped handle, free handle, and aligned free handle. So yeah, I just wanted to make that point. I'm not going to be able to demonstrate either of these because they just have not implemented it yet, which is totally fine. They're doing a banging job on the new Blender. So, okay, yeah, let's jump into this. All right, I'm just going to go straight over to the geometry nodes workspace. You don't really have to know what's going on because we're going to get to a lot of this stuff later, but I'm just going to bring it up because this is just, I don't know, I feel like it's just a good place to demonstrate the curve widget. All right, so I am going to add, I believe it is, let's see, vector curves. Pretty simple there. And I'm just going to blow it up. Okay, so there are several other places you'll see the curve widget. One of them being in render settings here. If you go down to color management and use curves down here at the bottom, you'll see, whoop, there you go. You'll see here's another curve widget down here as well. So you're going to see the curve widget in several places throughout the program. It's super useful. It has a lot of utility to it, but we're just going to use this because I can blow it up, and let's walk through this really quickly. Okay, you can add a control point simply by clicking along your curve. If you click, it both adds and activates that control point to be modified. So if I want to change my control point, say I go up to my specials menu, and I can go to vector handle, which is going to cause both extensions coming from that control point to be straight lines. So there you go. So vector handle basically just causes both lines emanating from that control point to be straight, like that. And auto handle is going to invisibly cause the handles for that control point to run straight through, causing the tangent for that curve to be straight. So you're going to end up with the best curve, I guess, possible. So watch, like that. Okay, and quickly reset the curve here. By the way, when you need to reset the curve, no matter how many handles or how many control points you put on there, whatever you're doing, right? When you want to reset it, it's the last option, reset curve, and it'll just bring it back to this basic linear curve. Okay, so we were going to talk about auto clamped handle. This does the same thing that the auto handle does, which makes the curve curvy instead of straight. So if I set down 2 control points and I pull one down towards the other, kind of get them about the same, about the same horizontally, you'll notice that there's sort of this kind of overshoot sort of deal that's going on. They don't go directly over. There's a little bit of kind of overshoot in both directions. So if I select both of these control points and auto clamp, convert them to auto clamped handle, you'll notice that overshoot will disappear like this. Okay, even though this isn't technically a straight line, if I move this around, you'll see that it still maintains a curve. It just doesn't allow for that overshoot curve to happen. All right, and as I said before, the free handle and the aligned free handles options have not yet been implemented. So hopefully we'll see that soon, because I believe it is supposed to be released in this version. I forgot to mention that these curves represent an input and an output. So your input, just like with any graphing, mathematical graphing, calculus, whatever, your input is along the x-axis. So your x-axis is the input, y-axis is the output. So if you would like to zoom in, the 2 magnifying glasses in and out are here. Zooming in allows you to better fine tune. You can just click and drag around. Okay, so you can zoom in closer to your control points and fine tune them as you see fit. Okay, now if you zoom all the way out, it will stop at some point, right? So we come up here to clipping options, which almost kind of looks like a little record symbol. This little circle up here, click on that. And if we are using clipping, that does not allow us to zoom out further than what the values here have been set to. So if I remove clipping, I can now zoom further out. You'll notice here that at the clipping points, here and here, that the line continues both up and down, and then it just drops off here. So there are a couple things we can do here, and this is what the extend options are for. So if we do extend horizontal, it will extend the curve horizontally at our clipping points. If we do extend extrapolated, it will extrapolate from where the curve is at and continue in that direction. So here, let's just run an example. So extend horizontal. Now you see where the clipping points are at. Now I have a horizontal line jutting off both ways from both clipping points. If we do extend extrapolated, now it extrapolates from the curves from where it was going and continues on in that direction. Let's take a look at the clipping options again. And I'm going to turn that back on. It's going to kick me back up. So minimum X, minimum Y, maximum X, maximum Y. So min X is -1. Obviously, if we've got the graph here, this is my X0, this is my Y0, this is my origin. So -1 X goes to here. So this would be -0.25, -0.5, -0.75, and -1. Likewise, in the other direction, 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, and 1. Same with your y-axis. So if we want to extend it, say to -13.7, -8, and then turn those up a little bit, that's where those points now relate to. Okay, if you are zoomed out or in and you want to get back to I guess zoom 0, default zoom, that top selection here, reset view, whoops, is what will do that. Reset view, and it did that because I changed the clipping option. So let's set this back to -1, -1. Wait, yep, -1, 1, and 1. All right. Okay, now reset view. There we go, back to normal. And if I want to bring back my linear curve, reset curve, and it brings me back to that. All right, the last thing about the curve widget is that you can copy and paste the contents of your curve into another curve widget view. So let's, just for fun, I'm going to curve it up over here. And you just use your typical Control-C, Control-V, all right? So all I need to do is hover over the window. So hovering over, my mouse is over there, Control-C. I'm going to come over here and Control-V, and it will drop that curve in there. So that is it for the curve widget. I will see you in the next video, which we'll be going over the search document.